You muted.
Hello. There we go. Welcome to Twoc Talk Thursdays. Guys, as you know, it has been quite a while since we've been on. A lot of transitioning has taken place. I'm on a healing journey, 100% healing, and the world is still moving. Things are still happening. Orders are still being written. And for me, the question at hand is, where do we stand?
Hmm.
Where do we stand with all that's been going on, all of these executive orders that have been written to erase us? Again, here it is with the erasure, to erase us. But we've got to stand together. At the end of the day, I believe that us standing together looks like us putting our differences aside and standing in solidarity with what's going on in our world today. Usually, I like to start by asking everybody, how was your day? Um, how do you feel about where we are? And what does solution look like? And I'll go ahead and pass that ball to one of our illustrious guests. I'm so glad he's here. Wendell, I'll pass that to you.
I feel good. I feel hopeful. So I feel that every day that we wake up, it's another chance to get something right that we messed up yesterday. So I feel hopeful.
Okay, good stuff. Sebastian,
I would have to echo that. We have no other choice but to feel hopeful right now, right? Like, what else do we have to lean on other than faith, right? And
right?
what we know we've done before, what we know that works. We got to get back to the belly and the root of movement work. Our ancestors taught us how to do this. We just got to tap into that, right? So I am definitely, hopeful, optimistic, scared if I can be real, just like everybody else is. But I know that I'm surrounded by some amazingly smart folks like you folks here in the room today, amazingly kind and loving people. I know that my folks, we got this. We got this. So that brings me hope, right? It brings me hope. So
Toy.
What was the question?
The question was, how are you? And how are you feeling in the climate that we're in currently? And what does solution possibly look like for you?
I think we have to have the conversation first for me to talk about what solutions look like. But how do I feel in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really would unpack and say a lot, but this happens to be kind of like the work thing. But I'm gonna keep it cute. Not cute, but I'll keep it as I'm annoyed, aggravated. I'm fired up.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Frustrated, ready to fight. Yeah, frustrated, ready to fight. Frustrated, ready to fight. I think right now is the time when we're supposed to show folks what we're made of.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a call to action on multiple fronts. Right now is the time for all stones to be used. No stone is rejected. No one is left behind. Right now is the time that we um, use all of our components. We use every part, every finger to make that fist that's needed. And in order for us to do that, we have to make sure that our conversations and our movements and our collectives are just that intentional collectives where everybody's involved and engaged, and we're not minimalizing no one's impact, no one's voice, no one is silenced. We got to this place because of silence. We got to this place because of an intentional erasure of history and knowledge. And and the only way we're going to get out of it is if we intentionally come together as a community, as individuals, as organizations and leaders to really fight as civilians and most importantly, American citizens. Yeah.
So I pose a question with the climate that we are currently in. Do you guys think that the Democrats are doing too much talking and not enough exerting enough action?
Just anybody?
Yeah.
So I found myself standing on the latter side of this. Um, just background, in college, I became a Republican when I was undergrad. And I did it because I just felt that it was crazy that I was told that I had to be a Democrat because everyone was a Democrat that looked like me.
Uh-huh.
And so I became a Republican, and that was a while back, right? It was not the Bush. I mean, it was not the Trump era; it was the Bush era. So my and I went to a convention, and I've done it, right? So I don't see it the same as most people. I think the Democrats are doing a lot. I think that they've done a lot. I think they've yelled as loud as they possibly could. And I think they did it under the idea of trying to please every marginalized group,
Okay.
because they couldn't scream too loud for Black Americans without Latin Americans being upset. They couldn't scream too loud for Latin Americans without Black Americans being upset. They couldn't scream too loud for Black women or Black trans women because they were going to upset the church and Black men. So they've had to have this juggling act that I call the single mother syndrome, right? How a single mom can do all she can to raise her kids, but the kid becomes an adult and embrace the dad that chose not to be there and talk about all the trauma that the mother brought them because of what she gave, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I see that as the same way with the Democratic Party with marginalized people. They do this thing of trying to please everyone, and everyone still walks away not full enough. So I think that we have to stop holding the Democratic Party accountable and start holding Republicans accountable. We have to stop deflecting from the real issue, because the real issue is that Republicans are the ones that were not even caring about LGBTQ rights, LGBTQ needs. They didn't care, and they never acted as though they cared. What they did was they told us what the Democrats didn't do, but they never told us what they would do.
Mm-hmm.
And we never asked them, what will you do? Instead, we looked at the Democrats and said, yeah, you're not doing enough. So I think that it's time for us to, of course, everybody can always do more.
Right.
So I'm not saying that the Democrats can't do more, but what I'm saying is that the bigger piece of this isn't what the Democrats are not doing, because we've taken the power from them. They don't have the power of the Senate, the Congress, or the executive branch. So all they can do right now is be advocates and activists out loud, right? But as far as the actual power, we have, and when I say we, not those of us on the call, but we as a nation, we've handed over the keys to the kingdom to the Republican Party. So it's too late to say what the Democrats should do. And it's time to say what the Republicans need to do, or this is what we will do as a collective.
Mm.
And I'll jump in there too, Wendell. I think that's so powerful, and I can't help but to agree. I think this is a bipartisan issue, and we focus on one side or the other and not really holding the feet to the fire of the folks who set us up in the first place. And then I want to also point out the fact that we got two Democrats, and his history, history repeats itself. It's so funny. The civil rights movement, I mentioned it earlier. Those of us who are in are really connected and know our history, we know that a lot of these movements were on the backs of Black women. They were on the backs of Black women. So right now we have Jasmine Crockett, we have Ayanna Pressley, who are two Democrats, women, Black women, who are holding folks' feet to the fire, right?
Yes.
And it's on the backs of Black women. And we have done it again. We have put that responsibility again without saying it. We see it, but we don't say it. We have put the responsibility on Black women yet again to come and save us. We have to get in there together. We have to hold it's a bipartisan issue. And we have to support both our Democratic folks who are out loud, who are screaming, because we are. I don't know if y'all been watching the news, just like Wendell said, we are. We are. A lot of us are growing a spine and doing exactly what they need to do. But we cannot forget about the other side of the aisle who continues to fail us, who continues to set us up, right? This is indeed a bipartisan issue. And all of us, again, just like Wendell said, could be doing more, but we do have to look at how history got us to where we are today.
Yeah.
And I think you're so correct, Wendell. But I think the reality is for some folks is that we were always told don't expect a phone call from them because they're not gonna don't expect them to answer the phone. So we never sent requests over there because they have always painted themselves as not available for us or anything that we had or what was important to us.
Hmm.
And so, with that being said, we relied on the tools that we had. So we put trust in folks that um, that depended, that understood the thing that you're talking about, but that wasn't what was taught to us. There's a lack of education that was present. There's a lack of history that was introduced us. I believe that if we knew more of our history and if
Hmm.
things were not hid from us, that we would not be in this place all the way down to, and it's not
Hmm.
pointing to blame, but when we think about what trauma, how trauma shows up, right? If I experience something and I'm a nurturer, I'm a mother, I'm a parent, I don't want my child to experience what it is I experienced. I only had one pair of shoes, using this for example. I only had one pair of shoes. So as I'm raising my child, I'm going to make sure my child have multiple pairs of shoes because I don't want my child to experience what I experienced. And there's a such thing called trauma. Trauma happened. And when we experience trauma, our job is now to shield. And I
Hmm.
think we go back to that place where the scripture says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Our parents had, and our great parents and ancestors experienced so much dysfunction and so much trauma from this thing called slavery, to where their main responsibility was to shield us from that. And in the process of shielding us from that, they took and they hid the education that's needed. Anytime you can hear black folks say now, if you go into the garbage can, I call the comment section the garbage can, right? If you go into the garbage cans now, you hear black folks saying, "Oh, black folks didn't contribute anything to this country and to this society. We didn't do anything but pick cotton." Black, you hear Candace Owens, you have Barron, you hear those black Republicans that are vocal and adding to this thing around erasure, erasing black lives, erasing our experience, saying that slavery never happened, and if it did, it was something that we elected and we signed up for. And because our parents shielded us from that, because they didn't want us to experience what it was they experienced. So because of that, they said, well,
Hmm.
I'm going to raise my kid up. I'm going to make sure they have everything that they needed. When the black folks fled from the South, what they call the Great Migration, they didn't just flee from the South and went up north. They left the teachings down there too. And the only way that the kids, if your parent fled from migration, the only way you was going to have this experience and this history is if they sent you back down south. Think about
Yeah.
Emmett Till. When his parents fled up north, they
Mhm.
didn't teach Emmett about that. They relied on their ancestors back down south to teach them around about slavery, about things that happen in the community. So I'm saying all that to say that we shielded and we hit that knowledge that is needed right now. And because we don't have that knowledge, we don't know firsthand, and they didn't share those experiences for us. We have now waited for a system to teach us something that they were never going to do. The system was never going to educate us on how to be liberated from them.
Never.
Yeah.
It's
Never.
all by design. It was all by design, right? To keep us in bondage, right? It was all by design. So our ancestors were never given the tools. We made the tools. If I could be honest, right? We made the tools. We created the tools. This country was indeed not only created on the backs of Native Americans, but also on the backs of our ancestors, right? And it wasn't just picking cotton. It wasn't. It was growing the crop. I really want us, like you said, I think history is so important for all of us, and because we are not taught and still not taught the accurate history of blackness, not even just how slavery started. I think most
Mhm.
of us know the fairy tale, right? But even how the creation of blackness even started, even the creation of race in itself as a tool to divide us. We really have to go all the way back and really know our history, because it was not taught in school, the accurate history of how this country came about and what we're really founded on. And that's what's
Yeah.
happening now, right? We're being reminded of what our real foundation is.
Yeah.
Lies, murder, stealing, criminals, because the country was stolen. Let's be real. It
Hmm.
wasn't ours to begin with. We right now, all of us are standing on stolen ground. All of us are on uninvited territory. But that wasn't taught to me in school. I
Yeah.
didn't learn that until I got, not even in college, y'all, but until I got immersed in spaces like this with other folks who know our history, both Black history and how it overlaps with queer history, because you cannot have one without the other.
Absolutely.
I didn't know none of that until I got in these spaces.
And that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I think what you just said was we expected the the colonizer to decolonize us.
And we're still waiting on it.
You get what I'm saying? There's no way. And even when we talk about funding right now, we talk about what they're doing now to eliminate and eradicate funding. There's no way possible. I tell people all the time, the government will never fund our liberation away from them.
Right, of course.
They're never going to teach us around the history that teaches us that we're not a minority. We're not a minority. A person that knows their name could never become a slave.
Yeah.
And because we don't know our history, that's why we're here. They're telling us that we didn't create anything, knowing that every invention that is created right now solely relies on our creation. We created those things. But if we don't know that, there's two fights. Some of us are fighting to get to a place that some believe we've never been to, and some of us are fighting to get to a place where we know we rightfully belong.
Yeah. But they use us continuously. They use us to weaponize against us. I always say that we created the tools, but they created the system to use the tools. So therefore, everything may have been created by us, by our hands, our minds, our sweat, our innovations, but we allowed them from the start. By design, they created the system in which we were to navigate. So we have been trying to figure out a way to navigate from the beginning. And that goes to the old cliche that they want us to win, just not before them. So the problem that started happening is that we were winning too much before them, and they created in 2016 an opportunity to push us back. And so I think that feeds directly into where we are, and it also answers how we should get out of it. And which Toya said already is we can't wait on them to do it. It will be a contradiction. It's very convoluted for the oppressor to help the oppressed. Like like that just makes no sense. Like how can you have a kingdom if you tell the person that you consider the lowest in the kingdom how to become a king?
Hmm. That was good, Wendell. That was good. So I want to know how you all feel about the Democrats being locked out of the White House. Like they could not go to work. A lot of people, I've heard people saying that they should have bust the door down. I've heard people saying that uh, Auntie Maxine Waters, her presence, her voice is so well respected that she could have ordered the people to bust the door down to get in. Like what is that? How has that made you guys feel? Even hearing that.
It infuriated me. I'm gonna be honest. It infuriated me to watch that, to watch how the love and appreciation for Black women has totally fled. And as she took a stand, we didn't see any Black men around her support her or guide her. We saw a Black woman fight for this country because she knew what was coming on the other hand. And
Right.
she was not protected by Black men in the way that she should have been. And once again, we saw this elder, this pioneer, confront a man. He put his hand on his weapon.
He sure did.
And here it is. We're so worried about what's going on with LGBT folk and trans folk, and the folks that are doing what they're supposed to do, are quote unquote living the right life or living it how they're supposed to. We're not there once again standing up to support this woman.
Right.
She was there by herself. There was no Black men around her to support her. None. And that's disheartening to even watch. But yet they're saying that we're the problem, we're the cancering community.
Yeah. I think that the revolution must be televised. And so sometimes the only way to build it up correctly is to tear it all down and start with the foundation. Is very unfortunate, right? It's very unfortunate, but it's just the reality of life. But we're not bold enough. We're not audacious enough to have a January the 6th on the opposite side, because we won't stand together to do it, because they were locked in step, and their media was locked in step with them. But we're not there yet. But the reality is Emmett Till's mom, Toya brought up Emmett Till earlier, but when Emmett Till was killed and slain, they tried to close the casket and his mother said, no, open it.
Right. Let them
Remember,
see.
said open it, let them see what they did.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to record it and let people really see where we are
Yeah.
before they can wake up and say, we have to get this together. So maybe kicking the door down and tearing the gates down at the White House, unfortunately, maybe those are the things that will have to happen, because I've never seen a protest that wasn't disturbance. But I've never seen a protest that didn't end up 10 to 20 or 50 years later as the greatest moment in history. So
Right.
sometimes you have to tear it down in order to build it up correctly.
You said several things. One of the things that I definitely have to highlight is how intentional and how planned out this was, how strategic this was. This was they have been planning this for years. We watching the presidential debate, and those that watched it. Here it is, and he's showing up late to his he showed up late to his. I don't want to lie. Where was he? Was in Wisconsin. He was supposed to go to the rally in Wisconsin, and he was late because he showed up to Joe Rogan's podcast.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, he understands strategy. He had a team of people that understand the most important tool right now is the manosphere. He won the election by the manosphere.
Yes.
We talking about, oh child, he horrible. He had those people at the rally waiting. Those were not the important people to him. The important people was Joe Rogan and those men, white and black, that listen to him. That they're feeding, and they're giving that we raising money to. They're saying that the Democrats are spending money to get celebrities to endorse content when he was paying podcasters. And he did. And they constantly fuel propaganda, constantly fuel propaganda. They understood. They were looking for opportunities where they could get information and just shift it all throughout the internet. Even if he didn't say anything, those podcasters were constantly, they understand the algorithm. So they invested their money totally on mass media and communications. And the way that they effectively did that was through the manosphere. I can go on right now. You can yourself can go on YouTube right now. You can find 150 podcasts where black men are talking about how low vibrational black women are, how horrible they are, how if they didn't have one or two baby daddies, they don't want to deal with them or be with them. They listen to those conversations. They listen to the conversations when Jess Hilarious had the comment when the trans woman said that women don't own periods. They listen to the comments. They listen to the hate and vitriol that said that when the women was in a comment talking about I hate trans women, and if you saw the black man saying something, I'll kill them every time I get a chance, or I'll beat one of them. They listen to this.
Yeah.
There's a whole team of people that's dedicated. That's why that movement was successful. They've been planning this. This was a strategy from the get-go. They listened to what we said. You said something earlier. We teach people how to treat us. They saw how we were treating each other.
Yeah.
They saw how
Yeah.
we were treating each other. And that's where they pushed their money to. So we have to be very cognizant of how we move this season. And you're right, the revolution needs to be publicized. I believe one of the biggest mistakes that happened is when the Attorney General at that time, Merrick Garland, denied us of knowing what actually happened January 6th. If we would have known what some of us, I'm not going to say all of us, I'm not going to generalize, but if we would have known to the extent how they were planning to overtake the Capitol, there was over 500 pages that was hid from us, how they were planning to blow up the nuclear plants, all of these different things, how they used North Carolina as the training grounds for the Proud Boys. All of this information was held from the public. I believe that if we had access to this, we would have not made the decision. Some of us that did vote on the other side, we would not have made that decision because that information was held from us. And once again, we need to be more transparent. We have to do things where it's visible. We have to make sure that silence is not the thing that's going to kill us anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you identified something that's important though. They had a strategy. Right? It's a plan, it's a put together thought, it's to look at what we know works, right? And that's the same thing, like I said, with the other side, right? They looked at what they know works, they look at what they know they can do, what they already have power to do. And let's be real, they have more money than us because money is the foundation of it too, right? So how do we, folks that from the perception anyway, that we come from a lack of privilege and a lack of profit and a lack of money, all these lacks, right? Lack. How do we then come together and push back against a system that has so much access, so much more access, and so much more of all the things than what we have. And I think people on our side of the aisle get disheartened then, right? And then feel like, hey, where's my voice? What can I do? How can I do when I got all of these systems that are pushing back against me? And I think part of it is, again, we have to have strategy as well. We have to be in conversation with one another and realize again that our issues and who we are overlapping. Like we're not just one thing. You can't, I said it earlier, you can't fight for Black rights and not fight for queer rights. You can't fight for queer rights and not fight for disability rights, right? You can't do repro without doing this. So I think again, our fight is so intertwined that we do a good job of othering each other versus finding commonality, right? So it's the really strategy is kind of what I'm thinking about. What is the strategy?
Yeah, I guess I don't see it as they had strategy, right? Honestly, I don't see it as they had strategy. I feel like we need strategy, but I don't feel like they won off strategy. I think they won off hurt and hate. I think that they were able to connect each person to something that they hated or was hurt by the most. And they said, this is what they are doing to you on the other side. And the assumption was it won't happen on this side because the reality is he didn't win just off of Republican votes. He won off of Democratic votes also, those that voted for him and those that decided not to vote at all. So that is how he ultimately won. I think that it started a long time ago. Like Tori said, I completely agree that January 6th was clever. Right, it was clever, and it was an inside job, as they say. It was definitely we saw the proof. We saw them doing tours there, being guided, showing them ultimately where the blind spots were. So we know this to be a reality, but unfortunately, because of socio conditioning, because of slavery and slavery mentality that we like to fight against having, we can never unite. So I think that the biggest fight that we have on our hand is that of unity. Because when I'm looking at Candace Owen, or I'm looking at the Carter family, that's the new these very easy on the eye cousins that are all of a fair skin, that are very attractive, and they have their little podcast where they are just anti everything, right, and pro everything Republican.
Yeah,
They have now started bringing them to the forefront,
that
putting them
part,
on stages,
that part,
showing
that
them.
part.
And so I tell people, evangelicals don't believe that Donald Trump is this huge Christian. They don't think that, but they know that he is anti-LGBTQ and he's anti-Roe versus Wade. So that was enough for them to say, "I'll close my eyes to that as long as he does this."
That
Pakistanians did not really think that Donald Trump was going to save them, but because the Republicans did such an excellent job painting a murderous picture of Biden and Kamala, that they said, you know what, I'll close my eyes to that as long as I get this. But now when we see all of them, this is when they are now dealing with they have to now receive the measures of what they did. So this isn't our time to laugh at them. This is
no,
our time to embrace them so that we can come together, because yes, they messed up, but we all messed up in some way, right? But
and
this
you
is where we extend grace. We extend grace because now they're vulnerable. So now this is the easiest time to get those communities and join forces, because like he said earlier, we are all marginalized. So we can go into, well, I'm a marginalized woman, I'm a marginalized man, I'm handicapped, I'm this. But the reality is, if all of the marginalized people come together, we really do outnumber the oppressor, if we really come together. But the problem is we have this oppressed awards where we have to prove who has been
struggle
through the
Olympics,
most, and
struggle.
it stops us. It just keeps us divided, because I have to prove to you what I've been through. I have to prove to you that it was worse on me. But we should be saying it was worse on you, it was bad on me also. But this is what we need to do to move forward.
Right.
I agree, Wendell. And
Um,
what I've offered up to that too to folks is twofold. More than one thing can be existing at one time. Multiple things can be happening at one time. And the second thing that I've offered up is that if we cannot be on the same page, as in equal unity, right? We at least got to be in the same damn book, somewhere close to each other. I think
Yeah.
there are many roles for each of us to play. There are the folks that need to kick down the doors, who are not afraid, number one, for their safety, to
Mm-hmm.
kick down some doors and do some January 6th style stuff, because I think that it does take some of that. And then there's some of us who are going to work in the background, who are going to pressure our
Mm.
legislators on the Hill, who are going to lobby, who are going to canvass, who are going to door knock and do some of those things. So I think the fight is multi-level, and it's a place and a role for all of us who want to be a part of the movement. And if we cannot reach unity, because even in, again, back to the civil rights movement, we know all black folks who wasn't out there protesting the bus. Like, we know that, right? All black folks went out there at the rallies, right? We know that, right? But I believe that if we can get somewhere in the same book near each other, that's a step towards unity.
And here's the
Mhm.
thing, Sebastian, you're correct. The enemy knows our strength better than we do.
Mm.
Can't find nothing to organize and come together on, but they know that black people, their whole goal is this is a global movement. The global movement is to eradicate and minimize and erase black men globally. Whether they see it or not, whether they accept it, it's not about trans. They
Yeah.
understood that black people have an issue, some of them in a large amount, whether it's Christians, evangelicals, or whatever, have an issue with LGBT and trans folk. But they understood that that's something that can bring people together. They knew that they would never get them on the board at first if they was to say, let's minimalize, let's. When he already said it though, but we didn't listen. Black jobs. I'll talk more about that later. But he said all of those things when he talked about black stuff. He got resistance. But when he said trans and LGBT, that's when people got
Right.
on the board. So
Right.
they
They came
found a way
together.
to make us come together. The thing that you
Hmm.
said we don't do, they found a way to do it. So
Yep.
we have to do better. We have to understand and connect with each other more. We can't say that we don't come together because they have found a way to bring enough of us together to gain momentum
To
in
hurt
their
us.
movement. They have found enough.
Divide and conquer.
A house divided is a house conquered.
Hmm.
And whether it's misinformation, we cannot expect them to stop doing what they're doing to create a healing space for black women and black cisgender women, black trans women to come together. That's one of the things that's very important to the Healing Project. I don't feed into the 65% of the support that comes from the Healing Project comes from black cisgender women. Raquel will tell you this.
Yes.
Black cisgender women has been one of the vehicles that has helped the organization travel to places that we didn't even know exist. They understand how bridging the gap is important. So that divide that they're talking about is not as big as people think.
Mm-mm.
But we have to change what the measure of success looks like.
Yeah.
We have to change what the
Mm.
measure of success look like. A lot of people say black people don't come together. They do come together. We have to find something that we agree on right now. Those people that voted for Trump, they didn't vote, especially those Caucasian people and those immigrants, they didn't vote for him because of the price of eggs.
No.
They voted for him because his mission was to make America great again. That was the most impactful call to action that I've ever heard. And we all know what that call to action was. I don't care how they tried to hide it. So most of those people that voted for him because they knew what his plans was to make America white again.
Yeah.
And now they're the ones that's out here. They're not, if you notice the signs that they're holding up, they're not saying anything about Trump. They said, but we didn't vote for Musk.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
did vote for Trump's agenda. You would have been
Yeah.
okay if it was just him pushing this agenda. But now Musk has an idea. Trump was rooted around division and revenge, and he wants to make America feel the embarrassment and the anguish and the pain that he felt. But Elon Musk wants global domination. It's
Absolutely.
bigger than that. It's
Absolutely.
bigger. And that's what they have an issue with. Trump wants to make us feel it. Elon Musk wants to make the world feel it. And he's not submissive to Trump. He believes that he's smarter than Trump. There's no way he's going to take orders from Trump. He breaks
Yeah.
protocol every time he can. That's
Yeah.
the person that we have to watch out for. And Trump is giving him the pass right now because he feels as though Elon Musk is pushing his agenda. But Elon Musk is intentionally shredding away the tapestry of this globe. Intentionally. Before he
And I
even
think that
got
Elon has
into-
something. I think Elon also, just conspiracy theory, I think Elon also has a carrot to hold over Donald Trump's head. Because Elon Musk started off with DeSantis. He was not pro Donald Trump. He was anti-Trump. And he switched gears after there was an agreement made. So I completely agree. And I think that Elon is going to help to mobilize those Republicans that are anti-Trump. But the question is going to always be, is it too late? So we have to fight now. Because in a minute, it will be too late. I will never forget when Donald Trump talked to the evangelicals and said, I just need you to vote this one last time. That has stuck with me throughout the entire election because that means so many different things to me.
And what was your interpretation of that?
My interpretation is that he's going to try and go into one world order. I didn't see dictatorship. I saw world order. And I felt Elon Musk in my gut when he did the Nazi salute. Um, because it's kind of written on the walls. So right now we should be thanking the very person that we hated the most, that we hated on, Joe Biden, because if it was not for
Him
these federal
stacking the Supreme
judges,
Courts.
if it
I mean,
was
the
not
Supreme,
for,
yeah, the federal
yeah,
judges.
if it was not for that, we
Yeah.
would already be 50% there. But they have blocked now over 90% of his executive orders. Thank God. But that can only last for so long.
Right.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
can drag it out for a year or two, but
Before
we
it
have
goes
to
to
make sure
Supreme
that we
Court.
meet this midterm election, because when it hit the Supreme Court, we already know how that's going to
It's
go.
the right. Yeah, it's the right. And
I,
I think a key part of this too is that education piece, because folks are not talking about this in terms that our community can understand. And I'm glad
Yeah.
we having platforms like this, and I hope that we can continue to do this so that we can speak in layman terms and speak directly to our people and say these things, right? Because these things need to be said out loud, because the revolution will be televised. It has
Hmm.
to be. We
Has to
can't
be.
do it low key no more, right? It has to be televised, because this is not just an American problem. This is a global issue
Yes.
as well.
and and
So
and you said something that made me think about what Wendell said earlier. Wendell said earlier. You said giving power and giving platforms to conversations in spaces like this. He knows Trump knew that he couldn't go to every space and every spot. So he took on those podcasters, those folks that lived in those communities, those men that wanted to have a platform that he invested into their podcasters and gave them a voice. That's how that was able to be successful. The
mhm,
average
Yeah.
person is not going to be able to listen to a debate because the conversation and the way that they do things is somewhat foreign. A lot of us
Hmm.
don't even believe that what's taking place now is existence. It's even taking place right now. They're more worried about Cowboy Carter tickets and things of that nature. So we have to be able to have folks that can speak the language. That's why
Yeah.
it's important for grassroots organizations to exist. And I believe that if they would have invested more money from the $1 billion that was raised from that campaign, we're not going back into that. But I believe if they would have invested more of that money into the folks that's on the ground doing the work, trans-led organizations and trans folk and LGBT folks created fundraisers to give to the Kamala Harris campaign.
Yeah.
When in actuality, we should have been bringing awareness to our own communities as opposed to giving it to that campaign.
I
So we
think
can
part of that too is just doing what we.
give them the tools.
Yeah, I agree. And I think part of that too is doing the only. But what what president? Give me one presidential election, y'all, that it hasn't been pick the best of two evils, right? So I think we get in these positions where we feel forced almost to make a decision based upon our values, based upon our eventual goals, right? What we want for our lives and our families, and not necessarily the turmoil that we're existing in right now. And I think a lot of that happened, especially in that race, and especially the time that we had to even get behind a candidate, a Democratic candidate. We only had a few months, when we all know Biden should have stepped out a year ago. Like it should not have even got this far. And I think that may have contributed and would have helped, but all of this is by design. All of this is
Yeah.
absolutely by design.
Well, I don't. I'm. I think that Biden should have stayed where he was, and they should have shut up, and they should have allowed him to get us over the hump and
Yeah.
retire in January and pass the torch to
Yeah.
Kamala Harris like he planned. People can say that he wasn't going to win, but I think that is one of the most useless debates. Is an
Yeah.
81-year-old is too old against a 78-year-old? I think that is one of the most ridiculous conversations in the world. They could have had a fight at lunch in high
Yeah.
school, right? So that's ridiculous. I think that there was only one person that had proof that he could beat Donald Trump, and he beat him by 7 million plus votes 4 years prior.
Yeah.
So I think that it was a wasted debate, a wasted conversation. But the reality is that's an even deeper conversation, because I think the white elitist Democrats had their own plan, and it wasn't because they didn't like Joe Biden. It was because they didn't want Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And so they tried to paint this he's too old picture, but we already had all the dirt on Joe Biden. There was no new dirt that was going to come out. We had already talked about Hunter Biden and his gun and his sex and his drugs, right? But we had new information on every single person. And they said in 90 days, that person should be able to win. And they did not expect for Kamala Harris to be handed it when Joe Biden did it the way he did. So I think that there's a deeper conversation there because it's the same way Donald Trump won. It's the same way we got Joe Biden out.
Yeah.
They give us one thing to run with, one piece of hate or hurt, and we run with it until the end, and then it explodes. But the reality is, if they didn't let a white woman win against Donald Trump, how did you think they was going to let a woman of color win against Donald Trump?
Right.
But they let the old white man win by over 7 million votes. So the reality is, for me, it's spilled milk now, but we can't repeat it.
That part.
We can't repeat it.
Yeah.
There's so many.
That makes sense. That makes
There's
sense.
so many intersections that I don't use the word fear. I don't navigate in fear, but there's so many intersections and so many directions, that so many things that's taking place right now. It's hard for me to really pick one for us as a community. But when I think about them tearing at the Constitution, the First Amendment, our right to protest, our right of freedom of speech, that wasn't the one that bothered me the most. But I think for me, it's when they're starting having conversations around birthright citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought it's just about, and we're thinking that it's just about immigrants. It's not. Along with that 14th Amendment, we have to understand that a thing happened called the Black Rights Act.
Yeah.
In 1868 is when Black folks got our right to be citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Under that was ratified, that we became citizens of the United States. And what folks don't understand, especially Black folks, trans folks, LGBT folks, if you're Black in America, you are born on this land, so you believe that this doesn't impact you, but it definitely does, because there were 200 Native Americans that were deported. And the reasons why they were deported, because even though they were born on this land, they didn't have the ancestry to prove that their ancestors were born here. During that time, they didn't give birth certificates. So if your great-great-grandparent didn't have a birth certificate, that means your existence is not and void on this land. And they're going to use that if we don't really fight right now. So that Birthright Act impacts all of us. We have to understand that in its totality. It's not just about immigrants. It's about anybody who they believe that don't have proof that they should have been, that they were born here. Yes, I have a birth certificate. My mom does. Her mom does. But does my great-grandmother have one? And during that time, slaves didn't have birth certificates. Enslaved people during that time didn't have birth certificates.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 1868 that Black people became citizens. So we have to be mindful of that. And like you said, Sebastian, a lot of us don't know this. A lot of us don't understand how this system works. We just listen to the talking points that's constantly being spewed out in community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We need to show ourselves approved. It's very important right now that we use our voices. And we make sure that we connected to folks that are smarter than us this season. You don't need to be the smartest person in your circle.
Yes.
And we have to have these uncomfortable conversations.
You
I
have
posted a video on my page. And I put the video on my page on purpose. And I asked folks, tell me your thoughts on this video. We couldn't get past the surface. This was a video of a woman from London. The people out of this country know more about these people's plans and how they're executing them than we do. There was folks that looked at the video and said, oh, her hair was a mess. All of those different things. We went into the aesthetics. When that woman said that they're understanding what Donald Trump is doing and they're speaking of it in other countries, we are the laughing stock. Because we're so worried about getting to a bag, worried about the physical things, worried about what's going on in my house. Not worried about the world that's on fire. We see the immigrants laughing. We say FAFO. At the end of the day, if we don't stand with them, it's going to be us. That's how we got here. When he first announced that he was running, he attacked the immigrants first. He started talking about the wall, even though the wall was unsuccessful. Then he went to the disabled community and mocked them. Then he went to the women, cisgender women, and said how he would grab their vaginas. Everybody laughed. Nobody said nothing. Then he went to talking about the trans people in the bathrooms. Understand that whenever we see someone fighting, we have to join that fight until we
Yes.
come together and agree as a collective, like you said, Sebastian. Even if we don't agree on anything, we have to agree that when we see a fight, when a bully is being attacked, we all have to make sure we go in there to attack that bully, not laugh
Yeah.
at what's going on. We have to
Because you're
stop,
next.
we have to stop picking up our phones and filming the fight and join that fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Too. Because it's going to be us next. It's going to be
Yep.
us next.
It's already us next.
Yeah. The
It's
14th
already.
and 15th Amendment that's enough to talk about all day long, is the 14th and 15th Amendment, because that's where all of our rights exist. You know, all of them, like all of them for Black people, all of
Yes.
our rights literally exist in the 14th and 15th. And I tell people all the time, the thing about an amendment is that it can be amended. Um, so we
Oh my
really
God.
have to put attention on it, because like even look at DEI right now, right? Like not to jump
Let's
ahead,
get into the
I'm
good
not jumping
stuff.
ahead.
Let's get into the good stuff.
But when you get into DEI right now, diversity, equity, and inclusion came about in the last 10 to 15 years, but they have used them eradicating DEI to also eradicate laws that have existed since the late 1960s. So they said, we're going to get everything that is associated with anything diverse, anything equitable, and anything with inclusion. And so this is where we're going. This is where we are going, because they were able to strip in 1 week. They were able to have the entire nonprofit sector in a frenzy, not knowing what was going to happen because of that one thing. And there is no checks and balance right now, other than those judges. So we have to really start educating, like Toya said, on the grassroots level. Start putting money in your city. Like, instead of donating money to a presidential election, find out in your city, in your community, who's
Yes.
doing the work, and
Yes.
get with them, because that's how we ultimately win these elections. Because in Texas, I'm in Texas, right? Which y'all know, Texas is a mess, right? But in Texas, we really could win if we would just let people know there's a reason to fight sooner than waiting till a month
And
before the
how to fight
election,
sooner. Not
and how to
how.
fight.
How.
And
How.
Sebastian hit that on the head
How.
so well earlier. The many ways some people write, some people go to city council meetings, some people go to school board meetings, some people just simply get out in the neighborhood and have small cell conversations. Everybody isn't meant to grab a poster and run to the picket line, right? Everybody isn't built that way, because I don't know your family foundation. I don't know if you have kids at home that you can't risk losing your job. You know, it's different things for different folks, but there's a way to fight. My friend Dr. Carter, she always says, I may not go out and dig the ditch, but I would donate the money to buy the shovel. That's protest. That's still a part of it. So we just have to get into those fights, because the 14th and 15th Amendment is going to be tapped on real fast, as long as they're playing around DEI.
So at the end of the day, what does fighting back really look like? Does it look like us marching like Martin Luther King did? Does it look like us actually physically fighting? Like, what does solution look like? I mean, this man is in office, so what does solution look like for us now?
Yeah, I mean, you know me, Auntie. You know, I've been on this thing. I mean, Chick-fil-A was a chop years ago, and I love me some Polynesian sauce and a tender. It was a chop a long time ago. Hobby Lobby, I love their arts and craft. It was a chop for me. I cannot, because I understood what the Christian evangelicals were doing to my siblings abroad. Now they were the ones that was funding the anti-LGBT laws and Uganda and all of those other countries in Africa. So I understood that. And when I saw that Amazon pulled its support of Kamala, even though there was a whole write-up that was written up saying that they were going to endorse her, that reporter, she left her job because they refused to endorse her. And when I saw that Wall Street, New York, LA Times and Wall Street Journal refused to endorse her, that's when I ended my subscription to Amazon. It had to go. Anytime I feel as though that my voice is not being heard, even though I'm not I'm not a $1 billion spender, but I know I add to the support that's being done. And I cannot fuel a system that oppresses me. I'm not going to fund my oppressor if I know about it. I'm not going to willingly do that. So one of the ways we can do that is by withholding our spending. Somebody posted, Malik posted about Jamal Bryant and the whole movement around boycotting Target starting March the 3rd. It's very important that we do that. Target
It
pulled back.
is.
Black people are like, why should we do that? Because Target vowed to produce and support and invest $2 billion into the Black community by 2025. And January the 16th, they pulled that. They pulled that and they said they're not going to do it and they removed DEI. That's why we're holding Target to the fire. And they're saying that there's other companies. We know how Walmart feels. We know how these
Yeah.
large corporations feel and how they endorsed him. So we have to do our part. Even
Yeah.
if everyone is not going to protest. I'll protest. I also will lock my purse up as well. I mean, so we have to understand that there's different ways that we can show up. I'll
Yes.
lie to myself. Understand that we have to hold them accountable. I tell people all the time, there's no way possible. If you go to a restaurant, you want to see who's fixing your food, right?
Uh-huh.
If you are own a business, you want to see who your employees are, right? You're not going to keep paying salary to a person that you don't see. Why
Right.
are we constantly electing these officials into office, paying them with our tax dollars, and we're not holding them to the fire and making them demand and advocate for what our needs are? They work for us. We don't work for them. You
Yeah.
should know who your elected officials are in your
You
area.
should know.
If something is happening in your neighborhood, you should be able to go to them and make sure that they hold your voice and they represent it in Washington. That's
Exactly.
their
And that's what I was gonna offer too as my solution. I know Wendell spoke to it as well, like what's happening in Texas in his local area and other local areas, how he's involved. Like we can all feel all kind of ways about the presidential election. And some people don't even have these conversations, but once every 4 years. Let's be real. But in your very backyard, there's a school board meeting. In your very backyard, there's a city council. There's all these things that are happening that we're not involved with on a local area that we don't know about. I'm going to forever always be hopeful and supportive of Black women, regardless of what they're doing, what race they're in. I'm going to always be hopeful and supportive, and that's going to be the ticket. I'm going to ride to I can't ride it no more forever.
Absolutely.
Win, lose, or draw, forever. But we have to get really invested in our local communities because the fight next is the midterm elections. That is where we still have a place. We have to take government works off of checks and balances. Jasmine Crockett already told us who owns the purse, who holds the purse. But if we don't put the support in there, right, in the House and in the state of representatives, if we don't in the senators, if we don't get our government control of our government back, we got another fight in front of us, right? So again, I think another solution is folks to really get invested and involved in your local politics, your local community, right? You don't have to have kids to go to a school board meeting. You don't have to, you don't have children to go to a school board meeting, but it's so important for you to know what is happening with the policies around the kids and the children in the area that you pay taxes in.
Exactly. You're paying for the school.
You're paying for the school.
Yeah. I think that we have to, like we love to say in the Black community, we're not monolithic. We should be monolithic on certain subjects.
That part.
Right? We should be monolithic. I'm not one that pumped that. As far as my rights to live, I'm monolithic. I feel the way you feel. My right to be able to afford my family. I feel the way you feel. My right to be compatible to the white person on the side of me. We deserve those things. So when we say we're not monolithic, that has become the greatest weapon of the Republican Party against the Democratic Party, is showing that Black people, trans people, LGBTQ plus people are not the same, but we are the same when it comes to our needs, our expectations, what we should hope for ourselves and for the people that come behind us. That is the same. I'm not asking that you travel the same path. I'm saying we have the same target. Like that is the same, because guess what? Donald Trump won because they were monolithic. Right? You didn't turn it on Fox News and see anything outside of the five where you had someone that was intentionally on a panel to say Donald Trump is trash, right? You didn't have that. But on MSNBC, CNN, you had all these podcasters that we want to make sure we're balanced. Forget balance. It's time to deal with the reality. The reality is, if you are standing on the side of someone that says my existence is a menace to society, then
Yeah.
we're not friends.
Hmm.
And if you look like me and you're standing over there, you're insane, and I don't want to share air with you, right?
That part.
Hmm.
Because we are monolithic when it comes to what is right versus what is wrong.
I like that.
Being treated like a human being should be monolithic.
That
Mhm.
part.
Like, we
That part.
have to stop that. All of these executive orders that he's written, they are so, it's so anti to someone. There was a woman, she's a trans woman in New York, I forgot her name, but she just said 2 weeks ago that pride, having pride publicly, is a protest.
Hmm.
We are not allowed to have pride for anything in this generation without someone challenging our pride.
Hmm.
And the sad part is when they look and act or come from the same places that we come from. If you are doing that, you're slicing your nose to spite your face, but you're sticking a dagger straight through my back. Claude
Mhm.
McKay said that if we put together, he said for every 1,000 blows, we just need one powerful blow,
Yeah.
right? But we can't have that one powerful blow as long as we're part of the 1,000 blows coming at us.
Correct.
Right? You can't be both. You can't be the swinger
We
and
can't
be
have
the victim.
we
Yeah.
can't have that powerful blow because it's impossible to make a fist because we're going to reject our pinky finger because we don't like the way it look or how it shows up because it's not as big as
Mm,
our other fingers. And
mm,
because we have taken that part of us away, regardless of where we look at whether it's LGBT or trans, there's a part of the body that we have rejected and
Mhm.
mhm.
neglected, and we have disowned that. And because of that, we're not able to make that impact that we need.
Because
We
we're
have
forgiving. We're
we're,
forgiving. We forgive. We forgive. Like we forgive. God says forgive. So we forgive. Treat me like trash. And tomorrow when you apologize for treating me like trash, I just say okay. And we move on. We don't unpack you treating me like trash and why you treated me like trash and why you should not treat me like trash in the future. We just say, okay, I forgive you. And we wait on you to do it again and
So,
again and again and again.
Wendell, question for you: do you think that's generational? Do you think that stems from trauma that we've carried generationally? That like we
Yeah.
always, I'm sorry, bow down. Like I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
mean to. Do you think it's generational?
absolutely. When they freed the slaves had nowhere to go. So guess what they did? They stayed on the plantation and became sharecroppers, right?
Mhm.
Because you freed me, but what do I do now, right?
right.
So you still gonna give me a place to stay, but I can leave off the yard whenever I want to now. We good. We good. So yeah, it's definitely generational curse.
I believe it's generational, and I also realize that um, black people in this country, black people are more. How can I put this? I believe that black people are more loyal to religion than they are culture.
Oh,
And it's a religion that was taught to us. It's not all that infuriates me. Such insane. I just have an immediate reaction. And it's
Yeah.
right, there we were taught from a slave Bible. It's a religion that was not taught to us. And
Mhm.
now we use that black folks
Religion is
in particular.
man-made. It's a
Yeah.
man-made
And
construct.
I'm from the deep south. I'm from Mississippi. So religion was ingrained in every part of my existence. But now I'm older and I'm grown and I'm coming into the world as I come into the world, and I'm figuring out that some of that stuff that was force fed to me, when I think critically, it does not make sense. And it feels like a tool of the oppressor to keep me oppressed, to keep me feeling like who I am is against everything, right? When I know that I'm created in this likeness, when the God of my understanding says that I'm created in his likeness. So how can me being a trans person not like it doesn't compute to me, right? And we live
yeah,
by a Bible, a religion that was given to us, not what
yeah,
we were originally believed in, right? Not the
yeah.
rituals and all of the other spiritual, like some of the
Mm,
things toward that Twoc healing does, like getting back into some of those healing modalities that we come from.
Yeah.
We were pulled away
yeah.
from
And it's a struggle. It's a struggle because for me, I live through I live through people like Raquel. I live through people that are still in that fight, right? Because that's a fight. Because remember, pride is protest. So whenever you are showing up as your authentic self in a space that wasn't necessarily created for you, you are protesting in that space. Um, but I tell people all the time that when I was an avid church goer, because I was raised in the church, right? My weeks were better. I tell people all the time that I found myself more peaceful when I was there, but I had to break off my relationship with the church in order to continue my relationship with God, because
Mm.
I never lost sight on who God was and what he had done for me and what he did for me through the church sometimes, right? So I think it's important that we remember that the church isn't all bad. The problem is that some people take that church and make it a weapon, because the Bible is not just anti-LGBTQ. It's not just anti-slave. It's a book of history for that time, right? So we're living through history right now. It's not all bad. It's not all good right now. So we have to take for what it's worth. But I do think that unfortunately we get caught up in the pre-Nat Turner versus the post-Nat Turner, when he was being taught to go on the plantation and teach them how to act right for the master. And then you go back to Ephesians where it says it's okay to have slaves, just don't beat them, right? So it's like those different things are playing a part there. But then I find peace with call things that be not as though they were. You just find peace in those things also. So I think we have to just keep filtering. Because still to this day, I tell people that if I don't listen to my gospel all the way to work, my day is not going to be right.
Yeah.
So we still lean on
Because
that.
we are spirits living a human experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Oprah
sometimes you
Winfrey
gotta
said that you
keep the
got to
meat.
believe in something.
And that's
You gotta keep the meat
very
sometimes
often.
and get rid of the bones.
Yeah,
Know?
Tony says
Mm,
very often that words have navigation systems. And
Mhm.
so listening to your gospel, going to work, those are those words working in you. And so it sets you up to have an amazing day because you're receiving those words and you're allowing it to be a part of your universe, your space as you go to work.
yeah. So
I
we have to
think
lean on it.
for me, one of the detriments to religion is we put so much emphasis in that quest for something that we are. The scripture says that that's what you believe, that when God created, God took the clay and created human and blew God's breath through the nostril.
Mhm.
That means that we are God. God gave us everything that God has.
Absolutely.
And because
Absolutely.
we are not able to see that in ourselves, we don't see our worth. That's why we don't show up the way we're
Mhm.
supposed to. We don't see our value. So we have put the value, and as Black folks, we are conditioned to believe that everything we have and everything that we own has more value than we do. Your purse have more value than you do. The way you look has more, your body has more value. When actuality, you are the gift.
Yeah.
You are gift. You are God's most amazing creation.
Mhm.
And when we
Yeah.
subscribe to words like minorities or less than, we have minimalized our purpose. That day,
Yes.
the day we wake up and say I'm a minority, or submit to somebody else's views of that, or somebody else projecting that onto you, we have abandoned our purpose for that day.
Come on. Come on. I would never tell a person you have to be 10 times better. I would never tell my child you have to be 10 times better than them. I would never, because that's telling them that they would never probably be good
Good
enough.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will
stop
never.
projecting and
But
stop
those are the
allowing people to
things.
project.
Yes.
That's your
That's
limitation.
real. That's
That's your
real.
limitation. That's your limitation. We
Yeah.
cannot
That's
allow
real.
people to constantly project their limitations onto us. Know
Mhm.
Yeah.
who you are. I'm spirit,
Yeah.
living a human experience. Spirit has no gender.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to be more than good enough to do artistic things and hair and dance and sing and act. We
And you
we
can
we
do
have
those things, though. You
no.
can
It's
do
nothing
those
wrong with
things
doing
if
them,
they're
but
going to
I'm saying,
increase your
yeah,
awareness for
but
yourself
it's
and
nothing
yourself.
wrong with doing them, but it is something wrong when you allow yourself to be put in positions where doing them becomes all you
Who you
are.
are. Yep.
Yeah.
If I'm
Mhm.
only good enough to do your makeup for you to go on stage and belittle everything that I am, then I
Mhm.
am no longer willing to use my hands to put the makeup on your face. If I'm only good enough to sing in your choir, only for you to 5 minutes later go and do a ministry where you make me feel less than, I am no longer willing to walk into your sanctuary. I think that we have to know our worth, and in knowing our worth is knowing our wealth. because everything about our power, unfortunately, is connected to our wealth. My
Because
talent is a wealth. Your brain is a
it's a gift.
wealth. It's
It's
a
a gift.
gift.
It's a
It's a
gift.
gift. So you have to earn it.
Mhm.
But
You have to earn
those
it.
gifts increase when you said that you connect to your high. Listening to your gospel music allows you connect with your higher power. Every time
Mhm.
you tap into that source, your gifts increase.
Yes.
You'll get that's why there's a connection. That's why there's a void. And we're not just spiritual people. They believe that black people are so connected to spirituality. No, we understand that that's the source of our strength. It empowers us. It empowers the flesh to be able
Hmm.
to do things. We pray for God in the supernatural so it can show up in the physical.
We
Right.
have receipts. Slavery is a receipt, right? They got
Absolutely.
through slavery by the very thing that we love to say, we call out when it's wrong, but that same very thing is what got them through slavery. That's
Mhm.
what got them over there. And that's what got them through the civil rights.
Yeah.
So we know that there is good in it, but it's like a gun. You can use it to save people or you can use it to destroy people. So
Because
it's a
we don't know
matter of
our
going to the
strength.
right place. We don't
Because
know
we don't
our
know our
strength.
strength.
We don't
Mhm.
know our
Anytime we
strength.
say we can't, you are limiting your potential. You are limiting your impact.
Yes.
You're limiting your impact. Faith is the
Yes.
substance of things hoped for with evidence of things not seen.
Let's see.
We have
Yep.
to speak things into existence. That's
Yes.
the power of words. I
Mhm.
don't put limitations on myself and I don't allow other people to put them on
No.
me. Before that's a cuss word to me. If you ever want me to be done with you, tell me what I can't do and where I can't go.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
your fear, that's your limitation.
Yeah.
I know that I'm wonderfully, uniquely created and wonderfully made. And with that, I have the ability to show up and be and do whatever it is I want to do.
Yes.
I have to tap into that. I
Yes.
have, and as trans people, I tell my siblings all the time, they're attacking us because at the end of the day, we have created this possibility model that never was supposed to exist.
Yep.
We have created
Yep.
society's trying to tell us that there are only male and female, and we are fighting about being put in a box around gender when our very existence breaks that box away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking that box. So why are we fighting to be put back in the box when our whole purpose was to eradicate that box? Because we know our gifts are bigger than the box.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
Our gifts are bigger than the box. So
Come
why are we fighting
on.
to be putting in a box? The issue that I have is when they're talking about putting me and taking me out of this country because of my gender or because of my expression or how I show up. That's an issue for me. But you telling me what bathroom I can go to? That doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me. It bothers me because it bothers me when you're telling me that there's a limitation on what I can do. Now, if you tell me I can't use the bathroom, that's something different. But you will feel and look more crazy calling misgendering me when
Yeah.
I know that I look more feminine and more attractive than the woman that you're laying next to. So you have to
Correct.
look at yourself and how you show up.
I
That
was
has
about to say you've been showing up. You've been showing up the way you show up before they were talking about the
that
showing up.
part.
So,
Right. Before a lot of us, before any of this was talked about,
yeah.
right? We have always used the bathroom that corresponded to how we showed up,
We
right?
made that a big
This,
issue.
this,
Let's
this,
be
this
Thank
honest.
you.
exactly.
She was
Thank
It has
talking
you.
about
been.
one person in the
Mhm.
bathroom. And so many folks got upset with Sarah because she didn't. And Sarah was not called to the trans community. She was called to the people in Delaware that voted for her. She
Yeah.
had a responsibility to those people. And
But
we took and made that an issue. We took that one isolated issue and made it an issue with all trans people using the bathroom because
Yes.
we kept recycling that narrative. We have to be mindful of not speaking poisons. Like the power of
Yes.
life and death lies in our tongues.
Yes.
We
yeah,
gave that momentum. They
They
watch,
opened Pandora's
they
box.
watch
yeah.
how we treat each other. And at the end of the day, they model that behavior.
I don't
They model
disagree,
that
Toy,
behavior.
but I also think that we have to meet the moment, right? I also think the fight was brought to us. The bathroom fight is what started any eyes on, and this didn't start just now, right? Let's go back to
No,
2015 when it really started, right?
it
The
started. It was
bathroom
the
thing is what
Proposition 8 in North
really,
Carolina.
exactly, the bathroom thing is what really started putting public eyes on us and started polarizing people in so many different ways because it was about abuse, right? It's about what they perceived we were doing in the bathroom. We know traditionally, it's almost said, I'm gonna call them out, old white men, cisgender white men, cis white het men are traditionally the folks
Pervs.
that are assaulting people in bathrooms. It was never our problem. It was never our issue, right? It's a tool of distraction. Even now, it's a tool of distraction. While we're arguing about bathrooms, they're taking the rights away from us to access the medical care that we need. They're taking the rights away from us to access IDs that accurately reflect who we are and how we can show up. But we over here fighting about the fucking bathroom. I'm gonna go to the bathroom that I want to go to when I want to go to.
Point blank, period.
Point
When
blank,
you on an
period.
airplane,
Period.
It's a convenient cry. It's a convenient cry.
It
You know, we've
is.
been knowing that we know that priests in the Catholic Church has been touching little boys since
I'm
the
writing on
1700s.
that.
But I'm just saying they ain't stopped. They didn't put them out.
There have
You know,
been
like-
$4 billion worth of lawsuits that have been paid to families of victims that have been assaulted by the archdiocese and put in the priests. $4 billion.
Jesus.
One of the largest
But we don't
cases.
talk about it. But we
And
don't
remember
talk about it.
last year they talked about that lawsuit with the boys club, the
Yes.
Cub Scouts, the Cub
Yes.
Scouts.
There's a whole
Yes.
Netflix documentary on it.
And these are cisgendered heterosexual presenting males.
Right.
And y'all are
And
not talking about
They're not.
that.
They ain't got no
About
smoke
that.
for that. They
And
ain't
if
got
you know what-
anything,
but you know what
we
the problem
have to
is?
have our backs going in the bathroom. I have to be very
But
specific.
we have to stop feeding it, right?
That's
Yeah.
my whole
We
point.
feed
We
it.
put gasoline on these fires.
Feed it.
Yeah,
Because
and
you're
I think
right, like
part
it's
of it
not been a
too is
thing.
us wanting to meet the moment too, Wendell. Part of it, like y'all, it's like I don't as an activist. And,
Oh, I'm not talking about trans people. I'm not talking about trans people. I'm talking about this is the time for us to have allies. At the end of the day, I know that there are so many people that they're telling us is against trans people, but I know that there's more people that love us than hate us.
Yeah.
And that's the time for those people to speak up. All fights are not our fight. Sometimes your existence is your fight.
That's the moment to meet. It's their moment to meet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because we can fight it. We can fight for us all day.
We stand on the line for them.
Yeah, we can fight for us all day. But the reality is when I went to Trayvon Martin's rally, when I went to George Floyd's rally, neither one of those individuals was a part of the LGBTQ community.
And we were there. And
but we were there. We were there. But when things happen to us,
all of our differences and made a difference.
Yes. And that's what it's about.
Saw that and said, oh no, this can never happen again.
That's what it's about. It's about standing up.
Not all of these distractors for us to be worried about other stuff than what we should be worried about, because in their heads, we can never come together like we did for George Floyd.
I'm gonna say this, and I believe this, and I mean I may get resistance from that at this point. I don't care. I believe that when we voted and people passed judgment and they voted for him because he was voted in against trans people, that's the day that we signed ourselves back into segregation.
I can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
That's the day we signed ourselves back. We made it legally possible for them to deny services over a human being, over a citizen, because of their decision to live who they are, for them to live in their gender that they identify as, because they want to go into the bathroom of their choice as the way that they show up and live their lives. And most importantly, what other folks don't understand is there's a such thing called the Religious Care Act that's going to affect all of us. The Religious Care Act is the thing that's going to give business owners and everyone else the right to discriminate against you because of their religious beliefs. If y'all are
already started
trans people, they're going to use it on Black folks as a collective. And this is happening globally. This is a global movement. This is a global movement. And we have to be cognizant of that right now. And I believe that we, as Black Africans, formerly enslaved people, are the key to the liberation of everybody else. It was our Black excellence that we have transported and changed this world. It was because of our gifts. It's because of the Mahalia Jacksons, our ancestors, our icons, and those folks before us that made being Black something fabulous and famous. It was because of the works of Black Africans, formerly enslaved people in America. We made Black a luxury. Our greatness, Jesse Owens, throughout history, we have done amazing things. And because of those works, Black people were able to travel across this country and be able to be represented and be able to carry themselves with dignity. And they were loved and respected. So
but this is what we start having.
If we have the responsibility, when Black folks showed up And that's what they're most upset about. Y'all can say what y'all want. When black folk in America, when black folk came together and stood up for the George Floyd protest, that's the day that America got upset. Because they saw once we stood as a collective, the rest of the world listened. And that's when there was an onslaught of support that came into organizations in black communities. And they never want that day to happen again. That's what they're fighting. If you listen to those, and if you listen to, and that's one of the interviews I always go back to, J.D. Vance and Jack Tapper, when they was having that interview, and Jack kept saying, Jay Tapper kept saying, so you're saying that he's going to turn the army against Liz Cheney? He said,
Yes.
no, he didn't say that. He said he's going to turn it against. He said no. He said the N-word. He said no. What he said was he's going to turn it against those protesters, those Black Lives Matter movement and protesters, those terrorists on American soil. That piece right there. That's the piece that sticks with me the most. That's the piece that they have a problem with. That day when we stood as a collective, the rest of the world listened and they followed suit. When we stood up, that became a global movement.
So do you think that this is the appropriate time where we invest more in small cell conversations that can actually bring awareness to these things? Like you mentioned, Make America Great Again, right? And I remember reading up, Ronald Reagan, that was Ronald Reagan's slogan in 1982, was Make America Great Again. The Heritage Foundation that put out the famous Project 2025, where they put out released their proposal to Ronald Reagan.
Who now controls the funding for America.
Right. So we've been here before, right? Because it happened with Ronald Reagan. No Pass, No Play was a part of the Heritage Foundation in the early 80s. So I think that the important piece here, for me, a takeaway that I try and make sure everyone understands, is that we have to be aware of the substance and stop getting caught up in the shadows, because we get caught up in that. We were so caught up in Kendrick Lamar. Was he boring or not? And we missed the whole moment that he was teaching, right? We get so caught up in these things. When Joe Biden did his acceptance speech, I will never forget, because he said China's name, which is someone that is true to my heart. But he called out 17 trans women that were slain. That was a very super important piece, but we forgot it. And we allowed history to forget it. But we have to keep reminding these things, because what he did in that moment was he normalized something that had not been normalized. So I think that what we keep doing as people of LGBTQ experience is we keep forgetting to keep our substance in their face. We allow them to talk about sex work and this and that, but we don't ever force on them the things that are positive that they may not want to talk about.
We never challenge their narrative.
We never challenge it.
$60 million of campaigns that were anti-trans, and we didn't have none to deflect that.
Nothing, because we still live in a world where we are choosing to allow ourselves to be a whisper rather than a loud yell. Like, we keep allowing it. We keep allowing ourselves to be no, I'm here. And I don't have to come in and say I'm a gay man, because you're going to know that when I start, right? But you're going to walk away understanding what I said.
Absolutely.
Because that's more important than who you want to figure out I'm in the bedroom with is not important. What's important is what we have to say, and we keep doing that. When I see Raquel talk, and she started with the same scripture. Everyone knows what Raquel does, right? No one is walking away saying a trans person. They're saying this lady Raquel, right? But we get caught about no. We have to make sure that our good outweighs our bad. But we continue to allow our good to be pushed to the back so that our bad. Why are we talking about Cherry Boom or somebody today and some video when we have our rights being stripped away? But Black social media is just going crazy over this. Are you serious?
And we're feeding that algorithm. We're feeding that algorithm.
We're fighting a fight right now. We're literally fighting a fight, but we're feeding into an algorithm, because when Kamala was running for president, TikTok made sure whenever you got on, you was going to see at least 5 Black women anti-Kamala Harris. You was going to see about 20 Black men anti. You was going to see some gays anti.
That's where the endorsement dollars went.
Yep.
Every penny.
It was a strategy from the get-go.
It was a pin. It was smart. They played off of our ignorances. And what we know for sure is that we as Americans prefer to be angry than happy.
Oh, yeah.
They listen to what we say most. And that's the piece I can't stop getting away from. They listen to the conversations around
Yes.
how there was such a divide between cisgendered and trans women. I'm telling you, they listen to that.
That doesn't exist. It does not exist
They
when
took
on a
those,
mass
even
level.
with they went as far as with the Shanquilla Roberts piece. The girl that killed her, they said that she was trans. They wanted to create a narrative so bad to spew hate,
And it was wrong.
but they used that to build their momentum to now get folks to feel like, okay, well, girl, no, they
And we
don't
were
like
helping
it.
push it. And we were
You see
helping
what I'm
push it.
saying?
Yeah.
That we're feeding that algorithm. We're teaching people how to treat us by being that to each other first.
Yeah. But why isn't a Don Lemon, or how do we get a Don Lemon to bring Toya on or Raquel on if he wants someone from trans experience versus someone that may be anti? If Don Lemon says that he is a openly gay black gay man and that he is pro this, how do we get him to do it? We get him to do it by holding him to the fire also. But we don't. We just roll our eyes and stomp our feet and go
And
to
we
the
have the
next
right to do
conversation.
that. And we have
We
the
have
right
the
to do
right. You can't get to Donald Trump as easy as you can get to your state representative.
that part. Because you're paying all of their salaries, let's be honest.
And they scared. They're the ones, if you roll up on them with a good elevator speech, you roll up on them with a good one, they're gonna listen because they don't want no static, because they understand that you don't care what somebody in New York feel about them. They care about what somebody in Georgia feel about them, because you're the one can get me out of this position.
But the piece is to minimize the impact of the trans community. They keep saying that trans people are only 1%. And if trans people, we was to show up, if there was like we're talking about strategies, if trans people was to show up at our local, pick one day, Trans Day of Visibility or Trans Day of Liberation, however, and trans people was to show up in their cities, in their states, and it was to show up, those politicians will understand, because most importantly, they need our votes. And when they see there's more of us than they're telling us there is, they're telling folks that we're only 1%. So they're not looking at that number. They're not looking at the number.
And we gotta stop saying it too. We gotta stop. Laverne Cox just said it on The View, and I was like, "Girl."
Oh, I mean, it's a talking point. It is a talking point,
and it's
and
not
at some
true.
point, people ought to believe that.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think we all have internalized that too, and it minimized our power. And it signals to folks that who don't quite understand data, number one, understand numbers, number two. In this way, it signals, especially to our youth, that we are not big enough for the fight, right? And again, we are more powerful when we can see more of each other and not necessarily put a number to it, right? So it's done to minimize us, and it's also a tool on both sides, right? It's a tool we use to say, hey, y'all, we exist. It's some of us, and then it's a tool on the other side for them to say, oh, we have to eradicate these folks. Because while it may be this amount or this percentage of folks, they are influencing policy. Because that's what happened, y'all. We influence policy. We got laws to protect us. We got sanctuary cities. We got TSA.
They're under attack right now. They're attacking them right now.
That so-called 1%, we moved the needle. So we got to go back to some of the stuff we did to move those needles.
And we have to start being more real, right? We have to start forcing. Like we're 12, they say Black Americans are 12.7% of American population. I don't believe that for 1 second, but you know who didn't allow it was the people of Spanish Mexican roots, right? They said they're 16.5%, documented and undocumented, right? They make sure that you get their number right, but we just say, yeah, we 12.7. Trans people say, yeah, we 1%. We don't hold them accountable, and then we don't hold accountable the fact that some people that are trans experienced won't put that they're of trans experience when they're doing their paperwork, the census.
But those documents, let's be honest, those systems are not set up to count us correctly anyway. And then also that, and think about our folks, like our Native American folks who are still living in different encampments in different places that don't have access to internet or don't have people coming to count them, right? Or even our folks in our rural areas, right? So those systems, like you speaking to, like that, they don't accurately count us or represent us in the first place. And then also we have to, as Black and brown queer folks, like we got to start counting ourselves too, right? We got to start counting ourselves and making surveys and data collections that actually represent who we are, because we identify in many different ways. And science tell us that there are more than just two sexes. Science
Mm,
tells us this, right? So we
yes.
again, we let's not put ourselves in boxes, but let's also refer back to what we know is real. So none of those things are made; those systems aren't made to count us correctly, and we
And,
need to lead those efforts.
Because
and
it's
we
a
have to
system.
create a space
And
that
it's a
allows, that create a space for our voices. And Raquel will tell you, a very few people. If my phone rang 3 times today, at this point in my life, I know who it is, because at the end of the day, I understand something and see things that most people don't. Some may call it propaganda, but God has given me the ability to travel the world and meet people and understand the fight that's taking place globally. Before 2 weeks ago, we just had a meeting with some leaders from Trinidad, trans leaders from Trinidad, from Guyana, from Barbados, understanding what's taking place, how this is a global thing. So when people are telling me that it's a propaganda, I and they don't want to hear it because it makes
Mm.
you uncomfortable.
makes you uncomfortable.
Growth is uncomfortable.
It is.
Yes,
Growth is
yes.
uncomfortable.
Growth is.
And even if you don't want to, even if you don't understand or don't believe what they're saying, listen to people. Listen to people. Hear them out. A lot of the things that we don't agree with, I'm not going to say I don't want to see it because I don't agree with it. At the end of the day, it's my job. I believe in my purpose is to give space to it to individuals. It's not my responsibility to minimize your existence. Even if I don't agree with what you're saying, we have to create that environment that we want to exist in. We have to give grace because we want
Yes,
to receive it in return.
yes,
We so quick to silence each other. Oh, girl, she's out of her mind. No, listen to her. You have a delayed response. Maybe she's seeing things in the prophetic. Maybe
yeah.
she's seeing things in the future. Just
'Cause-
because you're not at that point of realization right now, don't minimize
yeah,
your existence.
Yep.
we can't allow,
We have
be
to stop
allowed,
canceling
don't
one.
allow them to censor us. Don't
Yeah, we have
allow
to
it.
stop canceling one another because I'm radical right now. Oh, girl, she's doing too much. No, I'm not. You're not doing enough.
Come on.
Right.
When they say you're too serious, you're not serious enough.
Oh,
This
Yes.
is a very serious moment.
Well, maybe it's a place for non-serious people, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
but my rule with that is move to the side,
and
right?
move to the
Because
side, don't get in
you're
their
y'all
gonna
on
way.
the movement.
benefit.
Don't put your mouth
You're
on the movement.
And
you're gonna
you're
benefit from
still gonna
this.
benefit from that, and that's the
You're gonna
acknowledgement. At
benefit.
least acknowledge that you're still gonna benefit,
Right.
Yeah.
even from us making those powerful movements. And I
Yeah.
agree.
You're
Like
gonna
I think
benefit.
that we are not a monolith in the way of our lived experiences, right? But we are indeed, like you said, Wendell. And I think that's a talking point that we are when it comes to our rights and our needs as Black people, number one. And then you can get into the minutia of the different ways in which we identify and how we show up in the
Yeah.
world. But as Black people, when we're talking about our rights and what we deserve, I think that is a conversation piece is we are monolithic because we are asking for the same thing, right?
Yes.
Quick thing, brother. This is your thing. And so many folks are saying call out politicians and advocate and show their voices. Can you give folks a tool on how they can use their voice if they're not familiar? Because we need to also have an advocacy toolkit or a toolkit one-on-one to really help folks help sharpen help sharpen tools and folks, help sharpen their skills. Because some people want to do advocacy and want to show up but don't know how. What are some steps that they could take, or what is something that they can do in this moment?
Absolutely. I think some of the things that folks can do right now, particularly know who your national organizations are that are representing us in this fight, right? So your ACLUs, your Lambda Legals, your HRCs, your Advocates for Trans Equalities. Know who those national organizations are because all of those organizations are putting out survival guides. They're putting out explainers of executive orders. They're doing a federal action alerts where you're able to send your message, your direct message over to legislators because we know that gums up the system, right? And at the end of the day, we've all said it. Our legislators and our politicians work for us. So
Yeah.
you can go walk right down there to your city hall, walk right in the door. Number one, should nobody stop you, but we know that now we're dealing with that on another level, right? But you can go right to your politician's office and sit right down in the office with them and have a conversation from potholes to healthcare to the condition of the schools in your neighborhood. Don't feel afraid to go do those things. Don't feel afraid to pick up the phone and call the mayor's office and ask him why trans people are not getting the healthcare they need in Georgia when we already sued y'all ass last year about this shit. So I need you to get it right. I
Yeah.
can't be doing it by myself. I need all of us to be doing. I need their phones to be ringing off the hook about what's happening in Georgia and in your local neighborhood, right? So we cannot be afraid to reach out to the people who say they represent us. And then also, we got to start running for office, y'all. Queer people, trans people, we have to start running for office and get ourselves in those seats and
Yes.
take up space. Because as we see Sarah McBride doing, as we see other folks doing, right? We have to be in the game to play the game, y'all. And if we're not in the game, it's hard to play the game, right? So those are some ways that immediately come to mind for me is connect to your national organization, hold their feet to the fires too. Your HRCs and the ACLUs and the folks who have historically caused harm, let's be real, historically have caused harm to the movement. Make them show up for us because we too work for you all. So connecting with those national organizations that say they represent us or do represent us, connecting with your state and local grassroots movement. And I'm not being facetious, y'all. Google works. Google works. Search
Awesome.
and see who is your local organization doing trans work and reach out to them and get connected with folks that are already doing the work on the ground. Those are some of my tips. Really local, y'all. We have to get ready for midterms because we still got a place to win, y'all. We still got a place to win, but we have to get ready now, right now. We can't wait till next year. We need to start now, and we need more of us to start running for office.
Absolutely.
They may not want to hear what I have to say.
We always want to-
I want to hear it.
Our money matters.
Absolutely.
You
money
just
matters.
said Google. At the end of the day, Google just removed the Juneteenth and Pride Day off of their calendar. I'm not supporting that system.
Well, what
I
else? Other search system? I got
baby,
you.
this is me. This is me.
Understood.
Amazon is a chop for me.
Yeah.
I'm not feeding a system that suppresses me. When this first happened, I told when I said Raquel, I said, well, baby, I want to watch my shows, but they're on
But
Amazon, and she is a chop for me.
yeah.
I love the deals that's on Amazon and all of that, but baby, at the end of the day, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to sacrifice this season? What are you willing to sacrifice? Target, Walmart, your money matters. Content creators, we have a voice, use them. Get Black people together, give them tools, tell them, recycle those lists around those companies that are anti-us, and we give our money not to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the most important things that we can do this season. They're depending on our money to fuel them, even though they don't want us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to do better.
Yeah.
We don't need them that bad. Our people were so successful with the Montgomery boycott. That was back then. Imagine the power that we have now. They're depending on the $3 trillion that we bring into this economy, sweet chucks.
Mm-hmm.
What we gonna do about it?
Yeah. We have to know our money is power too.
We're gonna invest this season.
Yep. I agree.
I
agree
very
with that.
careful of how we're going to invest this season. Understand those systems that are against us. Home Depot, Lowe's. It's a chop.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand that. Yes, I know you said you want your stuff, but baby, there's other stores. Support Black businesses.
Yeah.
I know you may not get your stuff on time. I know they may have a nasty attitude, but hey, it is what it is. We can deal with that. We can have 60 days of nasty attitude, then years of being erased. We have to understand how powerful our dollars are. We have to
Because they've exposed
the
themselves.
systems that feed into our work. And we have done this for too long. We know a person don't like us.
Yeah.
And we still going to support their business. We're not going to, if I know Sebastian don't like me, I'm not going to support Sebastian. But yet we're giving this money to corporations.
Right. It doesn't make sense.
We take a stance against one another, but we're not going to stand against these big corporations that are depending on our money to eradicate us.
And they had an option. That's my sermon on this, is that Donald Trump didn't make them drop it. He gave them the power to drop it if they wanted to, and they chose to do it. So now we know that in June, when they were using us to come to all of their events and speak, and they were pouring money into our businesses, because they were doing it because they wanted to keep our dollars. We know that in February, when they were doing all of these rollouts, it was because they wanted to keep our dollars. But now they're telling us, well, y'all going to give us the money anyway, so we no longer have to do it. So this is what we show them. No, we're not. That's why March 3rd is so important. That's why everything that's coming up is so important, because they doubt our gangster. And so
Yep.
we're going to have to show them what happens when we truly ball up our fists and deal that one death blow.
And
But
because
we can't do that.
and they hear when we say we can't come together as Black people. They hear
Mhm.
when we say that. We have to be careful what we put out there because we're giving them momentum.
There's somebody on their team that's Black telling them that.
Yeah, telling them that.
There's somebody
And that's
on
my
the,
thing too. Like that's that inside outside strategy too, right? Y'all, like we need insiders to play that game over there too for us and that are willing. This is what I'm talking about, co-conspirators and not allies, right? I want co-conspirators, folks that's willing to be the mule. And sometimes that's our white folks, right? They can infiltrate those areas and willing to come back and tell us the information. I'm just being real because it's happening to us. Y'all don't think people infiltrating our movement? I've been doxxed 3 times.
Yeah. And
You don't think people are infiltrating our movement? They absolutely are, right? They knowing what our playbook, I think they know what our playbook is, and we have nobody on the other side really infiltrating those movements and also bringing intel back out that we can use because it
we
has
shut
to
them
be an
out.
inside outside game. It has to be.
We
We
shut
got to
them
have
out.
players on the inside and we got to have players on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Toya said at the start of the conversation, though. She said our enemy knows our strength better than we do.
Uh-huh.
How do they learn our strength? They learn our strength because those people that we keep closest to us share our strength. They expose our weaknesses. So I thought it gave me chills when she said it because I was like, oh my God, there's so much to unpack right there. Because the reality is, I'm from the hood originally, right? So in the hood, the best way to attack someone is to have someone on the inside tell you what's going on. You have to learn their schedule if you want to break in their house. You have to know when she's going to be on her most vulnerable state if you want to jump on her. You have to know these things from the inside. So divide and conquer has continued to be the greatest weapon. So we have to now stop the divide. And that's when we will start conquering.
But I believe it's very important that we see in this season that we know our value and we know our worth. If you don't know who you are, you're not going to be good to nobody else. We have to know who we are. We have to know our worth. We have to know that we are valuable components. We have to know that this system relies on us. I'm not a less than nowhere I go. There's a tax in my there's bills that's created so that I don't exist because there's something that emote out me that every time I show up, somebody else see what they can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Or should or shouldn't do. I'm a possibility model every time I wake up for somebody.
Yes.
And you have to know that.
Yeah.
And when you know your assignment, there's nothing that can take you off your focus. So we have to know our work this season. Know that you're not less than trans people, Black people. You're not marginalized. You come from kings and queens. We already there. We have to stop fighting to go to a place we've never been to, but understand that we are the originators of this. And the only way that their system is going to work is if they continue to brainwash us and tell us that we're not.
Yeah.
The horrible thing about slavery for them was that even though they owned Black bodies, they never owned Black minds.
Yeah, and that's why they weren't able to keep us enslaved.
That's why they weren't able to keep us.
But we forget. We forget our power, our strength. I think one thing that we should start asking other people is, what is your value? What makes you valuable? Force people to think about what is their good. Because I don't think we challenge each other on that enough. It's not that we don't have good. We just never talk about our good. We talk about our bad. We talk about our rainy days. But if you talk too much about your great day, then you're egotistical. You're arrogant. But we want to hear about all your pain. But let's talk about our joy. Let's talk about the things that brings us together.
Right. That's also why we can't come together. Because somebody else is afraid of somebody else being the head of something, or if they're the head of it, then they'll get more FaceTime or more showing, or people will show up. We have to get past that space and place that we're worried about who's the one who starts it. It's just about us all doing the job. Whoever starts it or heads it up, then wonderful. We just hold them up. If we can move past that, being jealous of someone else because it looks like they're way up here and we're down here. If we all do our part, the body has all parts. And if we all do our part, then the body can then function.
Yeah, we're all students and teachers.
That
It's just a
part.
matter of knowing what moment is what for what. I remember I was at a workshop in Atlanta, and I'm very passionate, right? I'm very passionate. If you can't tell. And we were having the conversation, and I was, I'm passionate. To me, it's normal, right? Because I come from a debating background, right? So everybody's like me where I come from. So I'm like, what's wrong with them? But Toya paused, and when she paused, she told me in love, she was like, maybe just, pretty much bring it down a little bit. They don't quite understand you,
I
they
said it
may
was the
feel,
tone. Everything
yeah,
that Wendell, every time Wendell shows up for me, always have been since I've been knowing Wendell. We've been knowing each other since we were teenagers. It was always a level of awareness that was beyond their peers to me. And sometimes our delivery can be the main distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that Wendell was saying in that moment was valid and true, but it was the tone because of the passion. And everybody's not going to receive that, especially when you're in a space where people are looking for a reason not to support you.
yeah.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
didn't get mad, right? I didn't get mad because number one, I knew that she had my best interest at heart. I've been knowing her for a million years. She's never done anything to hurt me, right? So if
Right.
she's telling me this, she's telling me because she's viewing what I'm doing, right? So I didn't get mad. I toned down. I calmed my tone and I waited my turn, right? But my point is saying that is in our community, we normally will see things like that as a negative. In reality, sometimes it's just simply your turn to be taught something.
Mm.
It's not saying that you lack intelligence. It's
No.
not saying that you don't have the know-how or the doability. It's just saying that right now there's a better way, and let me help you. Let me show you this better way. What's wrong with that? And I think that when we can get over those humps, then we can say thank you and have real gratitude without facades, without all of the extra. And then we could, because one thing that white America has shown us, my grandmother used to always say, if you watch them long enough, you'll see their horns growing, right? One thing that they've taught us is how to unite. They taught us because they'll be fighting like cats and dogs. But when that light comes on, they're lock and step. But when the light comes on with us, we think it's cute to say, I'm different. I'm different. But no, I'm not different because in this moment, if I'm giving you a platform on my platform to hurt the very thing that I am, then I am not good. So if on my platform, if I say, well, Donald Trump is not all bad, yes, he is. He's all bad for us. So why would I make a post say, well, he's not really that bad? But that's what we do. Those
Mm-hmm.
are the things that we do. If I made $1 extra while he was the president, oh well, my money was better. You didn't earn that. It was called a stimulus, and that's what we're dealing with inflation now to pay it back.
Right.
So, but we have to teach these lessons, but it's hard to teach it because then they'll be like, well, I'm not dumb. You're not going to tell me like I'm dumb. But that's when the Toya lesson comes in for me, where I say, okay, let me think about how I'm going to say this. Let me say a little prayer. Maybe I should send them an email. Like it's different ways, but we have to figure out those different ways of coming together. We have to figure it out because we can fight about the fact that we're divided all day. We already know that we have some division. The bigger question is, what do we do to bring it together?
Yeah.
And that's why I asked about solutions because at the end of the day, we are being bombarded with the system. The system is overloaded us. It's called shock theorem. Right now, there's intention. That's the strategy to shock us by giving us so
Yes.
much to where you're not at a place. You can't find a solution for one thing because your body's still dealing with this. Like it's compromising the immune system of the black body. Compromising the fight of the black body by introducing so many components, so many cancers. At some point, cancers is destructive. It creates destructive cells. And racism is that cancer that has been introduced. And that racism goes from trans people, then it goes, all of those different minorities are under attack. Those are cancers. And at some point, our body's going to break down. We're going to stop fighting because we're not going to succumb to the system. And they intentionally know that. So in this season, I wanted to have more conversations around solutions. You can call somebody that don't even watch the news, but they're telling you all the bad things that's happened. They're telling you all the things that they're doing. We need more folks that are solution oriented and solution based to stand up and lead and offer our community members solutions. What does that look like for you? Right. But now I believe that the Healing Project is uniquely centered right now because I believe in order for us to get to where we got to go, we got to know who we are. It's very important in this season. And if you know who you are, you're not going to be distracted by what they're trying to do. I know my strength. It's impossible for me to navigate in fear because I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. And if enough of us was able to be at that level of awareness, we would be able to talk about what solutions look like. I may not agree with the method that Wendell's saying, or the method that Sebastian is saying, or the method that Queen Mother is saying, but I agree with this with the destination.
Yeah,
we all want to travel different vehicles in life.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Our purpose is to end up to find at the end. The end goal is the goal. So for us to meet up and get to that place where we all have mutually created a strategy to get to. Long as one of us don't go into Tesla though. Right. And for Black folks to now look at a Tesla as a thing of arrival. I've arrived. They have now trying to place the bill to pour $400 million into this economy for Tesla trucks.
And we being distracted by bathroom talk.
I need to get off. I have a T-Mobile phone. When I saw that T-Mobile commercial during the Super Bowl that says Starlink, I'm looking for another provider. I'm that big. I love my Black people that much. I love my trans people that much. So much so too, I know that there are some people, and when you get into this movement, and when you understand that your life is just not about you, you have to fight even for the people that want you dead. I went to a conference this weekend for creating change. I was almost attacked for just existing. So when we get to a point in community, we're not realizing what's going on in the world. We're so worried about what's going on in this small bubble, and the world is bigger than that. The world is bigger than that. This is a global takedown of Black bodies. This is a global takedown. That man has just signed an executive order saying that they want to annex and own parts of Africa. They want to run the Gazan people off their soil.
The Gaza Strip, yes.
They want those people to go to Jordan or Egypt, and they know they're going to reject those people because they want Gaza to be the Riviera of the Middle East because of the location. It was all about that from the get-go, to repopulate the white race. And they want to move those Gazan people to Egypt and Jordan. Of course, they're not going to let that happen. So what's going to happen is, since Elon Musk came into the scene, he has always been creating this whole thing that there's a genocide, that Black people are planning a genocide against white people, South Africans on South African soil. And that's never been true. But he's constantly gaining momentum. They want to, the goal is to move those people from Gaza to Africa. And that's not going to happen. So this is going to be the third time that African people are going to be occupied on their own soil. And they're going to fund the Gaza people to occupy their land. Those people say they're not moving. And we have to stand up in solidarity. We have to pay more attention to what's going on in this global society. I love Beyonce to death. But I'm not having conversations around Cowboy Quarter because I know it's bigger than that. I'm not having conversation about a trade and a girl DM because it's bigger than that. I'm called to my people. And even if they're not fighting, even if they're not aware, I have taken on that as my responsibility.
Yeah. And I think we have to also realize no one of us is greater than the least of us. And there's many parables and many sayings to speak to that, right? Like, we are no more powerful than the weakest of us. So if we continue to pull at each other, I have some push and pull about that, crab in the bucket mentality. I think it doesn't fit every situation, but if we continue to pull at each other in that way, we're still leaving behind the least of us, right?
Yes.
And I think that's a problem too as well. And not the least of us as in you lack worth, but you lack access. You lack daily basic access to living a thriving life. The very same thing we ask for trans folks, right? That we don't want to just live. We want to thrive. I don't want that just for trans folks. I want that for Black folks. I want that for immigrants, migrants. I want that for all of the folks who have been disenfranchised. And I'm being careful about not saying marginalized because I believe those groups together makes up the vast majority of what our global, what we look like on a global plane as well, right? So I really think that we have bought into that less than, that we are overall less than as a people and don't know our worth. And as we start to excel, we as in Black folks and other so-called marginalized people, we tend to forget about the folks behind us, the folks that we're leaving behind, the folks that don't get this information, don't know that these things are happening, or not even educated about how the system works. We quick to throw them away, those folks away. And then when shit breaks down, now we want them to come on back over in the fight. When we forgot that they couldn't eat last week,
Mm.
you know? So I agree. I think that we cannot, as our egos grow, as you talking Raquel about egos and all those things, right? This letter of success, and I'm speaking specifically in trans advocacy, this idea of this letter of success, and you got to climb it and you got to be here. And if you're not here, what you're saying doesn't mean anything. And we have all these egos, and our people are still suffering. Like we're still like behind the mark. We're still behind the mark. So again, we have to like this. Again, the idea of unity is a very hopeful one. Yes, we got to come together.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna always be on the same page. And I'm gonna say that again. We're not gonna always be on the same page, but we can be in the same book. We can have different tactics, all reaching to one goal.
Before we end, I do want to talk about this one thing. This global thing to end PEP for LGBTQ folk.
A lot of feelings.
According to the State Department document, the President Emergency Plans for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, is back in action, allowing HIV medication to be distributed abroad, but not to LGBTQ plus people. The document confirms that PrEP should be offered only to pregnant, breastfeeding women, whereas anyone who may be at high risk of HIV infections or were previously initiated on PrEP option cannot be offered PEPFAR funded PrEP during the aid freeze, which means high-risk populations, particularly men who have sex with men and trans people, are still blocked from receiving PrEP through PEPFAR.
Mm-hmm.
But we worried about what?
And we told y'all that they was gonna start and how they was gonna start. And now look where we are. It was gonna start with
Elon Musk. That's why I said what I said about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
That's been his thing from the get-go, to kill those, to eradicate Black people on African people on African soil. They know that African people in Africa, our people in Africa, gonna be impacted most by U.S. aid and PEPFAR.
Yeah.
And we're not doing nothing.
We're not doing. I was gonna say we're not doing enough, but we're not doing nothing. Because we can. Well, hopefully, people can see the real goal, right? Because why would you want to not allow the people that are in the most vulnerable place sexually to not have access to this? Why would you not want them to have access to it? And I think that is the question that people should be mad about. They should be angry because there's no positive. There's no positive goal. There's nothing positive to say. I'm not going to give you the very medication that may possibly save your life.
Because
unless I don't care about your life.
Because there's an attack on LGBTQIA plus people globally.
Yeah. Yeah, in my line of work, in your line of work, and most of our line of work, they pretty much want us to put HIV back as a LGBTQ illness, right? Because at the point that you strip away all of the DEI and you say that you can't put no funding toward anything that is individualized, right? It has to be something great. So you can't say I'm putting money into Black HIV Awareness Day.
Yeah,
you can't say
sexuality
that.
Based.
It has to be LGBTQ, and there is a goal here, and it's our job it's our job to stand firm and fight it, even if it's fighting the very people that we love the most. Because I'm not having a Beyonce debate with not one person. I'm grown as hell, and we're dealing with some real crap right now.
Right.
Some real crap right now, and fighting about how much Beyonce tickets are when the ticket is the same price as one pill for some people.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
I, I just can't. I cannot. We have, but we try to stay away from the conversations because we don't want to. We don't want to look like we created. No, we need to create it. If
Yeah.
you're my friend, you want to have a conversation that petty. If you're my friend, then we're gonna go there.
Right.
If you're my friend, we're gonna go there. So if you want to bring this up, let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about it. Because I love Beyonce too. I'm not a beehive because I feel like I'm too grown to call myself something like that. But I am a fan, right? But I am not going to sit and talk to people who are struggling to pay their bills about how they got a ticket to a
Mm-hmm.
concert that is the same amount of their bills for the month, and then later on have a GoFundMe up crying about inflation, gas prices, and eggs.
Doesn't make
You
sense.
don't get to say that the food is too high, but you just purchased a ticket to go see Beyonce. Like we have to
Talk.
really,
Talk
we have
good.
to put these things, in order.
And
Importance to
protect-
least
yes.
important. So we really have to have these courageous conversations in our friendship circles. So my friends can't silence me. If you don't want to hear what I gotta say, don't call me.
Right.
I don't call people. Like it's just a thing. Like I don't call, you call me. I don't even call people back. I get woe out for not calling back because what's important to me is not important to you. When
Yeah.
you're on your phone going through Facebook to see today's drama, I'm going through the news to see what I need to put on Facebook to work somebody up.
Yeah.
And I get that everybody's fighting out the same, so don't get out my lane. Get
Yeah.
out my lane.
And
Yeah,
and for me, one of the things we laughed at, well, not we, but not me, but some folks thought that he was over exaggerating when he said black jobs. The Attorney General Pam Bundy, he ditched the Attorney General on private companies who utilize DEI to hire people. They chose to hire people who black folks, Hispanic, women, LGBT. And if you pick a minority group, Donald Trump has dispatched Pam Bundy, who's the new Attorney General
yes.
of the United States, to criminally investigate companies that do DEI. This is segregation.
Yeah.
This is segregation in 2025. Her goal is to attack those companies, those organizations, and she did that with her first day in office. On her first day in office, she sent 15 pages, bringing back the death penalty in so many situations. All of these things that's attacking black jobs and black communities. But we said that this thing was not a thing, and it wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
How ignorant. How many times do we say, oh, did we hear people say, oh, he's just silly. He just say anything. Everything he says he attempts to do. He may not make it to the end on them, but he
You
always
showed from.
attempts to do them. So
Mm-hmm.
we can never be surprised that he did what he said he would do.
Right.
I'm surprised at the ones who doubted that he would do what he said he
Mm-hmm.
would. When I heard about the Gaza Strip and him talking about renaming it, I didn't find it funny. I didn't find it
It's like
sad.
the Gulf of Mexico.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
oh my
Well,
God, the Gulf
that's
of
already happened.
America.
No, that's already happened. So
Yeah, it's the Gulf
yeah,
of America.
yeah.
It's the
And we're a
Gulf of
laughing
America.
stock, and we are a laughing stock, I think, of the globe.
I'm telling you,
Like we
everybody
are a
in the
laughing
world
stock.
knows what their plans are, but we're the ones that's most impacted, and we're not listening and paying attention to
Yeah.
what they're telling us.
But America is in a laughing stock. Black and brown people in America, LGBTQ plus people in America, we're the laughing stock, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the white people, they're making America great again.
Some of
He's
them.
giving them what he said. Right. Well, we know the mass majority. Well, no, the mass
Those
50-50.
farmers and those other people that rely on US aid to make money for them, those are the ones that's leading the protests. When
Yeah.
we see those people out there protesting, we know that it's time for us to put our shoes on and go support them.
Right. But
Even
my problem with pro
if we
farmers is
talk
that
about
pro farmers were also fighting for him.
that part.
But I do still stand on that. We have to get people while they're at the most vulnerable state
That part.
Yeah.
and bring them into the fold. We can't fight them, but the reality is, your ass stood over there and thought that it was not going to come to your
Oh,
doorstep.
Yeah, they
But now
did.
that it's at your doorstep, you're
yeah,
screaming. But lucky for you, I'm still screaming too.
yeah.
So we
Right.
can all come together. But you don't forget what you did, because next time, in 2 years, I'm gonna need you to do the right thing. Because we can handicap him, but it starts with Congress and
Yeah.
then the Senate. It'll handicap him. It will
Mhm.
handicap him. Like they were saying, well, he's going to get 2 more seats to put on. Those 2 seats that he's possibly going to get while he's in office his next 4 years are Republican seats anyway. So it
Mhm.
won't be expanding the Republic. They already expanded. Like, it won't be expanding it, but we can handicap him. So people need to know that you need to get with your state reps, your
That's
state
important.
senators, your city
Very important.
councils. You need to start finding out what is going on. Talk to your judges in your area. They can't just share things publicly, but you can find out what their judging ratios are. You can find out if
Mhm.
that court is a fair court for Black and brown people, LGBTQ people. Is it a safe space where it's fair and balanced? These are the conversations we have to start having. Have conversations with your children when they're going to school. What is happening when they're at school? Get on these college campuses, especially public schools. Find out what's going on. You don't have
Oh,
to, like
let's
they
not
said,
get into that. The
you
Department
have to
of
get there.
Education piece.
Oh
Mhm.
God. Did you
Oh,
Yeah.
see today,
Yeah.
yesterday? Did you see that?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
So Sebastian, this is our, our Bayard Rustin. I know that's a lot, but for me, I think it's very important that they have tools. So I know there's trackers that you all use so folks can be able to
Mhm.
find who their senators are, who their representatives are, if they don't have access to that information or don't know how to find it. If you send that information to us, we can post it at the Twoc Healing Project page on our social medias. And that's something that we all should do as well. Post trackers so you folks can be connected by putting your zip code. You can find who the politician is, who your representative is in your area, so
Yes.
you can schedule meetings or go up there.
Mhm.
Most importantly, when you see white folks up there protesting, baby, go with them.
Yeah, legislature day in your state. Find
Yeah,
out when that is.
ours
Mhm.
is March the 26th. Our
I think
on Day of Legislation, Trans Day of
I
Liberation
think ours is
at
the
the Capitol.
same day.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Hmm. In
And then,
Texas, yeah.
yeah,
And they're normally there's several. So I know people do several lobby days across the country. Where folks can come up, like large groups of folks can come and talk to their legislators. I know again, one is happening here in Georgia. Georgia right now is in the thick of state legislative session. So we just had 2 or 3 bills to come out that folks should be aware of here in Georgia. Texas is about to ramp up in shortly. Like the South is doing this thing already. So Alabama just had something to pass that's sitting on the governor's desk. So we are in the thick of legislative session. But I would absolutely get my amazing folks over at Twoc the links to be able to connect to folks finding their legislatures. And it's really easy to do. You know, folks, like you, whatever search engine that you prefer to use, you can just put in your state. Who's my legislator, my legislator, and it'll send you straight to the state legislator page. You put in your zip code, and it'll tell you all your representatives and also how to contact them.
yeah, yeah. And also, Sebastian is going to make sure he gets that information off to us. So we're going to simplify. We're going to help you help us out, help America out. Yeah, so we're going to
Yes.
make sure that we post and provide as much information as we can. We're not a C4 organization, but I believe right now every organization is a C4 organization. We have a
Absolutely.
responsibility and a duty to make sure that we're advocating and providing information to community members, tools so they can better equip and inform themselves so they can make decisions that's going to make America great for us.
Yes. Right.
They may be trying to tear it down, but we have the ability to rebuild it and create the
Yes.
world we want to live in and the world. And that's why we have these conversations. I know today was a real lengthy one. I see my mother over there, auntie over there nodding, baby. We're so glad to have you back.
I'm
We're so
so
glad
glad.
to have you
I'm
back.
glad. I'm glad that we're having conversation and dialogue again. I'm glad that we're giving our peers, our loved ones, our community, that we're doing what Twoc Talk was created for, and that is to give tools so that at some point you will use the tools and be on your way to having a life, being healthy, healed, and whole.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if we all come together and fight together, we are stronger together than we
Yes.
part. And so we will continue with Twoc Talk Thursdays every second and fourth Thursday. We'll come to be able to give some information. We'll continue to do our Did You Knows. And this whole dialogue today pretty much was about did you know? And so if you didn't know, now you know. And we'll continue to be able to put information out there to be able to be of a help and aid to our Black and Brown lives, especially in this current climate. I want to say thank you, Wendell. Thank you, Sebastian. Wendell, this is your first time. It will not be your last. This is your first. And
No.
we were so happy to have you. And of course, you did not disappoint. Thank you for allowing all of you to show up. Sebastian, you know that you are our man on the ground. You hear me? You make it happen. And every chance you get to help Twoc, to help Trans Women of Color Healing Project get the message out to our community, you show up, and we greatly thank you for that. And yes, you, Toy, and Wendell, y'all need to run for some office seat. Saying it, putting it in the air right now. That yes, Wendell King, Toy, Washington Redmond, and Sebastian Smith. Yes, y'all need to run for office, and I'll push y'all to do so.
And we can leave on a good note. What y'all thought of Kendrick Lamar's Super? Thank you, Bronco. I see it. What y'all thought of Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance? Because we still got to put a little something in there that
The message was outstanding to me. And if you were not taking a 50-foot stance back and looking broadly at that, you missed it. You missed the message. That was a protest in real time. And the protest absolutely must be televised just like that. Like, I mean, it was just for me, like, that's all I saw was the message. I didn't see what he had on, care nothing about the pants, nothing about the chain. I didn't see any of that. I saw the message. And for it to be all Black folks, it did it for me. It was a protest for me in real time.
Yeah,
I'm going to have
I
to
agree.
because I didn't see it.
But I agree. I thought that was brilliant. I thought the 150 obvious Black, and I have to put emphasis on that because they intentionally went after obviously Black people, not mulatto, because they didn't want no mistake, right? I thought that was absolutely amazing
and
to
set him in the
create.
middle of that, and set him in the middle of
Set
that.
him in the middle, to show how Black people made this nation and how the nation is divided, and it was all on a prison
Yours.
plantation, on a prison yard. I thought that it was brilliant. I thought that well, I feel like it is something that history will tell a story later of how brilliant it was, because he knew that this person that is running the nation had to sit there and watch it in real time. And when they were yelling, chanting DEI, I thought that that was excessive brilliance, because it was forcing them to understand. And I also got the message today that I didn't get then, was that they chose to use all Black people because they wanted to show what DEI does when you add
Well,
diversity.
we know. Look at the plane crash.
Brilliant.
Fired.
Brilliant.
So, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And for
Chef's
me,
kiss.
it was amazing. I was giving my husband, we was watching it together. I gave him so much drama. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, what is he doing? What is he doing? I said, see, we need a Beyonce up there. And I'm just looking at the look on his face, because as much as I was aggravating him, it brought joy to my face for him to be so engaged politically and to see Black men care about their country and care about the
Yes.
message that the care about the message that's being given to the country. I thought it was amazing. But I think most importantly, y'all, we have to cover him in prayer and go out and buy music. I don't buy rap music, but I have to support him, because as an entertainer, as an artist, your goal is to make it to the pinnacle, and the Grammys are the pinnacle. And he was successful a week before and won 5 Grammys, made history. And he sacrificed that, you all,
He
so that he
did.
could give a message to his people. And even though after the performance was over, they went back on with the game, because that's the reason why they came. But that's so is life. We fight and we sacrifice so much, and people move on like it never happened. Well,
Move
some
right
people,
on.
but we still have a responsibility and a job, and we have to cover
Yes.
those folks that sacrifice themselves to make
He
sure
was a
that
martyr. Yes.
He was a martyr, like so many of us are doing. Trans
Mhm.
people, trans folk, you're martyrs. Black women, black folk, you're martyrs.
Yeah.
Understand your responsibility. Know your worth.
Mhm.
Know
Yeah.
that you can't control people, but you can control what happens to you and around you. It
Yeah.
starts with you and
Yeah.
your voice.
Yeah. But I want to salute the three of you because you show up every day intentionally and unapologetically as who you are and not allowing this moment to run you away from who you are and what your purpose is. Because what we are seeing and hearing today is that you should somehow be ashamed to exist as who you are. And I
Right.
think that that alone is protest when you show up as who you are because it is needed, because there is a child that is struggling with their identity right now. And they're now being told what the children were told in the 70s and the 80s. So your presence is telling them that not so. It
Mhm.
is not so. So thank each of you for being who you are unapologetically.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. And
This
thank
has
you
been
for bringing
another,
diversity
yeah,
to our panel.
yeah,
This is our first time having um, sharing space and getting insight with a cisgender sibling. So
yeah.
thank you for
Thank you.
being here.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank
thank
you.
you. And I'm glad to make history.
Because this is Twoc Talks. Sebastian made us say, no, y'all need to rethink that because my voice is needed. The men have to be present because we're here too. And
Absolutely.
he has created a lane and created a mark within the movement and especially in this organization in our lives. So thank you.
It's
But thank
necessary.
you for Amundu, brother, for just being here and bringing such deep dialogue and having those thought and creating a thought provoking, helping to create a thought provoking conversation that we know can be transformative.
Right.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all too.
Yeah. So until fourth Thursday, we want to bid everyone a good night. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. I'll ask that each of you share this to your page because a lot of times people don't want to be seen listening to what they need to hear. And so if it's just there, people can just go back and watch it. So until next time, everybody have an amazing evening. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy
Happy
Love Day.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I love you all and see you all soon.
Good
Yes.
night.
Good night.
Au revoir.